So you may have seen an article going around from the New York Times about how YouTube is going to be taking down more far-right radical content. They're going to be taking down thousands of videos, and I was going to do a video on that, but then I realized, go to the original source. Let's go to the official YouTube blog. Rather than seeing the New York Times take bits and pieces, we're going to see exactly what they say. So, from the official YouTube blog, our ongoing work to tackle hate. This was published today, Wednesday, June 5th, 2019. Over the past few years, we've been investing in the policies, resources, and products needed to live up to our responsibility and protect the YouTube community from harmful content. Interesting. This work has focused on 4 pillars: removing violative content, raising up authoritative content, reducing the speed of borderline content, and rewarding trusting creators. Now, that borderline content is rather interesting because, again, borderline content seems to be more it's kind of like what the Data and Society report talked about, something that might necessarily lead you to like something that isn't necessarily bad in and of itself, but is related to something bad. So, like, let's say you watch a regular video and borderline content might be suggested in the recommendations because they have something in common, and then a more extreme video might be recommended in the comment to that, recommended from that borderline video. That videos are like, it's the idea of you slowly working your way to an extremist ideology in some video, and starting with like cat videos or something, that as you watch certain videos, they personalize your recommendations until you go down the rabbit hole of a certain conspiracy or something. And they say rewarding trusted creators. Now, again, the issue is what they mean by trusted creators tends to be like MSNBC, CNN, ABC, usually like big corporations that also have a YouTube channel, rather than like certain specific content creators. Now, like, when they say trusted creators, they do seem to be talking about, like, someone that's got 20 million subscribers on YouTube, someone that has been around for a while, they put out good content, someone that probably is so big on YouTube that they know someone from YouTube that they're able to talk with over certain issues. But for the most part, unfortunately, this just means, like, big corporations rather than small alternative media creators. Thanks to these investments, videos that violate our policies are removed faster than ever, and users are seeing less borderline content and harmful misinformation. And again, if you're something like YouTube, once you declare a misinformation campaign, then bias is pretty much inevitable. Because when you say, we have a platform and we're going to start filtering out the fake news, there are certain things that, it's all down to what is fake news. Like, there is such thing as objective truth. Sure, there is some things that are objectively true and other things that are objectively false. But the issue is, who are you relying on for your source? Who is going through this content? Who is the one saying this is true or this is false? If you rely on Snopes, then, Snopes for the most part is, like, they're somewhat reliable in that they can kind of give you the gist of it most of the time, but they're also biased enough that you can't just say Snopes said it's true or Snopes said it's false, therefore it's true or false. Like, you can't rely on them 100%. You can rely on them maybe like 85% of the time, I've found. So, of course, whoever you're relying on, and that's what YouTube does, YouTube's not just going to say, we think this is right or wrong. They're going to rely on something like Snopes or something like some kind of fact checker system to really work on harmful misinformation. And it's like, okay, what's the bias of those fact checkers going to be? As we do this, we're partnering closely with lawmakers and civil society around the globe to limit the spread of violent extremist content online. Again, if you want to work on eliminating violent content, sure, I get it. Like, people directly calling for violence, that's pretty much the only limit that, like, true free speech advocates say. If you're going to start advocating for violence, then we can say you are encouraging violence, that you are intent on causing direct physical harm to people, and therefore that is you can take action against that. Now, I'm someone that I consider myself a free speech extremist, and then I'm actually not even necessarily I don't even consider directly calling for violence as or blocking people or removing people that directly call for violence as blocking free speech or being limited on free speech, because my issue isn't the speech itself, it's the consequences of that speech. So in the sense of, if you directly call for violence, we're going to say, okay, you're endorsing political violence, and if you're encouraging people to do it, you are complicit in that violence, whether it happens or not. In the same sense of drunk driving, that if you're, like, you should be pulled over and I don't know, arrested or what, but you should be punished, essentially, for drunk driving. Because even if you're not actually, like, even if you don't actually harm anyone, you're putting people's lives in danger, and you should be responsible for putting people's lives in danger. And if you knowingly put people's lives in danger, it doesn't really matter if you hurt someone or not. It's the idea that you're taking that risk for other people, and that's where the whole limit comes in. That when you directly call for violence, you haven't actually acted on violence. In the same way that if I put a gun to someone's head and I don't fire it, but I like black or whatever it's called, I tell them to do what I want, I haven't actually committed violence, but I obviously have the intent to. It's that kind of line. That's where I divide the line, that calling for violence is like that. Sure, you haven't officially done anything actually violent, but you have shown a clear intent to and endorsement of violence, and punishing violence is what we do. We review our policies on an ongoing basis to make sure we are drawing the line in the right place. In 2018 alone, we made more than 30 policy updates, which makes me think YouTube is becoming severely bureaucratic in that, sure, if you want to fix your policies, like over time, God knows I have a problem with YouTube's policies. I recommend they make some changes to them, but geez, 30 policy updates in a year. That seems to be a bit bureaucratic for me. It makes me think that when you're making all of these little changes, like it's so complicated that maybe it's too complicated. One of the most complex and constantly evolving areas we deal with is hate speech, which is a loaded ideological term. The problem with hate speech is that nobody can agree on what hate speech is. It doesn't have a set definition. So someone like me, for example, the only thing I really consider to be hate speech in terms of like that I would enact a policy would be directly calling for violence or endorsing violence. And even then, you have to make the clarification of, is it wrong to endorse violence when you're endorsing violence in the name of self-defense? Well, no. It's more you have to endorse the initiation of violence. So if I'm going to say X group is bad, is that hate speech? Because if the group I am referring to is a race or something like that, then yeah, that's a lot more hateful or a lot more of an issue than saying I hate X group when that group is like a violent terrorist organization or Antifa. So it really does matter here. Like the nuances really matter, and they don't seem intent on really clarifying that. We've been taking a closer look at our approach towards hateful content in consultation with dozens of experts in subjects like violent extremism, supremacism, civil rights, and free speech. Based on those learnings, we are making several updates, and of course, that's what's worrying. Who are these dozens of experts? Are they the Southern Poverty Law Center? Things like that. Groups that are so incredibly biased that, again, they've gotten sued for referring to Muslims as anti-Muslim extremists, and they lost that case. Removing more hateful and supremacist content from YouTube. YouTube has always had rules of the road, including a long-standing policy against hate speech. In 2017, we introduced a tougher stance towards videos with supremacist content, including limiting recommendations and features like comments and the ability to share the video. That's the so-called limited state. The idea that the video will not show up on search results, it's not going to show, you can't comment or like or anything, but the video is actually still on YouTube if you have the link. It's essentially unlisted. This step dramatically reduced views to these videos, on average 80%. Today, we're taking another step in our hate speech policy by specifically prohibiting videos alleging that a group is superior in order to justify discrimination, segregation, or exclusion based on qualities like age, gender, race, caste, religion, sexual orientation, or veteran status. Which is rather interesting because doesn't this mean that pretty much every single atheist video is going to be taken off of YouTube? Okay, not every single, because of course when they say just discrimination, segregation, or exclusion, that is something that will need to be met. But yeah, basically, criticizing Islam at this point, criticizing any religion at all, the Zoroastrians, criticizing any religion is now, or on the grounds of justifying discrimination, which of course, again, what is discrimination? Well, really it just means like judging or discriminating, choosing. Like discrimination is another word for choice, but it has a negative context because it's usually choice in a sense of choices that we don't like. But yeah, discrimination based on religion. I mean, do you treat people differently based on their religion? I don't know. Do you treat people differently if they're radical extremists? Like right there. It is now against. Today, we have taken another step in our hate speech policy by specifically prohibiting videos that allege that a group is superior, say atheism or Christianity or Islam, in order to justify discrimination against. Again, what kind of discrimination? Are we talking about discrimination in business, or are we just talking about simple criticism of saying they're bad? because that's where you have to take these terms in the loosest possible definition, because that's how they're going to be taken. But yeah, so this pretty much takes an issue against criticizing certain religious ideologies. As long as you're saying, like, if you go the road of saying these are bad, and you're obviously implying that if it's bad, we should judge it negatively. This would include, for example, videos that promote or glorify Nazi ideology, which is inherently discriminatory. Again, there is an issue if something is inherently discriminatory. Now, I don't disagree that Nazi ideology is inherently discriminatory. Like, I don't disagree with that at all. I agree with that entirely, but there are many other ideologies that are inherently discriminatory. In fact, progressivism. I would say that pretty much any leftist ideology, socialism, or pretty much anyone that advocates for affirmative action is inherently discriminatory, because they're advocating for discrimination based on race in government politics. Pretty much anyone that advocates for, especially anyone that condones the BBC, saying, yeah, we're hiring employees, but not if you're white. If you're not white, we don't want you. Like, saying that specifically in their advertisement, or in their job application. Like, hey, this job is reserved for non-white people. So, again, this is something that there's obviously going to be a double standard here. Finally, we will remove content denying that well-documented violent events like the Holocaust or the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary took place. Now, to me, this is dumb. Like, it's kind of like blocking flat earthers. Like, I mean, are people denying the Holocaust really, like, that big of an issue in today's society right now? Because honestly, as we've seen, I've never watched a single, like, Holocaust denial video, or I haven't looked into it at all. But that does, like, I'm not afraid to look into it. That's not something that's really bothered me. It's like, okay, maybe one of these days I'll watch one just to see what their arguments actually are. Because again, as they pointed out here, this is something that is well documented. So it's kind of hard to disprove. But that makes the point of, okay, if it's so well documented, then why are we, like, just let people put out stuff? I don't know. I take issue with this because this will be taken out of proportion. Like, what happens if you, Are we going to start taking down the tankies now? Or are we going to start removing the videos of people saying that, yeah, actually the Soviet Union wasn't so bad? Sorry, Bernie Sanders. I'm just like, my biggest issue here is not even so much the rules themselves, so much as how they're going to be obviously biased. We recognize some of this content has value to researchers and NGOs looking to understand hate in order to combat it, and we are exploring options to make it available to them in the future. So this is rather interesting that, like, oh, if you post a radical video, we're going to take it down, but we're going to show it to some researchers, and why do they have access and not us? That I don't like this such a bureaucratic system. It's like, just let people say things. If it advocates for violence, take it down, otherwise leave it up. It's pretty simple. The problem is, I've even brought this up on other videos, that when you start blocking videos like this, when you start taking a very centralized approach to something like this, it's doomed to fail. You cannot do it. It's not even that, are you going to do it good or bad? It's that it's doomed to fail. It cannot work. It's, like, one of the biggest issues with government doing things is that when government centrally plans things, it's doomed to fail. Like, it's not going to work. Simple as that. It fails because you cannot centrally plan things on such a massive scale like that from one, like, central system. It's just not going to work. And I question, and I'm not saying YouTube's the government or anything, but I'm saying YouTube is of a certain size that when it comes down to regulating YouTube, regulating speech on YouTube, that is such a lofty goal. That is such a big goal that I just do not think you can do it. It's just not going to work without having major flaws. And as always, content matters, so some videos could remain up because they discuss topics like pending legislation aimed to condemn or expose hate or provide analysis of current events. We will begin enforcing this updated policy today. However, it will take time for our systems to fully ramp up, and we'll be gradually expanding coverage over the next several months. Imagine how much this costs just to maintain. That's crazy. Reducing borderline content and raising up authoritative voices. In addition to removing videos that violate our policies, we will also want to reduce the spread of content that comes right up to the line. In January, we piloted an update of our systems in the U.S. to limit recommendations of borderline content and harmful misinformation, such as videos promoting a phony miracle cure for a serious illness or claiming the earth is flat. They even did it! Oh my god! Oh my god, they're actually gonna, like, limit flat earther content. Like, real... Honestly, is flat earther content a problem? They're laughable. They're idiots. Like, it's something where, if you're going to be convinced by a flat earther video, are you really, like, I don't think most people are that dumb. I mean, maybe I'm overestimating society, but honestly, like, are you really taking action against flat earther videos? Those are hilarious. I love watching them because they're just it's the lowest of low hanging fruit. I can't believe I honestly can't believe they mentioned this. That's kind of hilarious that they specifically called out flat earthers. But no, there's an issue here when it comes to borderline content, because it's the big issue with the data and society reports and like that, where, oh, if you watch this guy, or you'll watch an ordinary video, but then you'll watch this guy who's rather centrist, but then he'll have someone that's a moderate right-winger on his show, and then that moderate right-winger might talk to someone that actually is part of the alt-right, and then now the person's addicted to alt-right content. It's that kind of thing of what is it, the alternative influence network, where you watch one person and that leads you to another. And that's generally how it works. I'll admit that. That's how I find out about people. I watch someone, and then occasionally I'll find a guest on that show that I enjoy, and I'll start watching their content, and it does lead me to learning about several different people. That's generally how it works. But notice how, I mean, with all the YouTube videos I watch, especially all the political YouTube, you think I'd be like some far-right extremist by now, but I'm not. So the videos haven't worked on me. We're looking to bring this updated system to more countries by the end of 2019. But anyway, to get to my entire point that I kind of tangented off of, the problem is when you're going after borderline content, like, just think about that. Just saying, well, your video is talking about the same issue that this far-right dude talked about, and that comes up, like, that might be recommended, so we're taking down borderline content. So they're applying this rule very liberally. They're saying, okay, this rule, even if it doesn't apply perfectly, we're gonna give you we're not going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to say, okay, this is borderline content here, like, we got to watch out for it. Thanks to this change, the number of views this type of content gets from recommendations has dropped by over 50% in the US. Our systems are also getting smarter about what types of videos should get this treatment, and we'll be able to apply it to even more borderline videos moving forward. As we do this, we'll also start raising up more authoritative content and recommendations, building on the changes we made to news last year. For example, if a user is watching a video that comes close to violating our policies, our systems may include more videos from authoritative sources like top news channels in the Watch Next panel. So basically what this means, as far as I can tell, if you're watching a video by an alternate content creator, like if you're watching a video which it's not extreme or radical in the slightest. So again, take Sargon for example, someone who's definitely like pretty much in the classical liberal definition, not at all extreme, but talking about alternative media and generally talking about things that the alternative media talks about, these are things that also extremists might talk about as well. So instead of having other alternative content creators coming up in the recommendations, really at this point it's going to be CNN and Fox News and ABC News and MSNBC. These are the, like, again, top news channels. So they're specifically favoring top news organizations rather than alternative media. So again, if you're someone that looks at the news industry and you're like, okay, big corporations versus the little guys. I mean, I'll admit the big corporations have more resources to get the truth right. And watching some guy on YouTube, I mean, if it's some dude on YouTube, I'm not going to say everything he says is true. I'm not going to trust what he says, but then again, I'm not going to trust the news companies either. So, as we've seen, oddly enough, it's the little guys that are actually putting out the truth better than the mainstream media. So, of course, YouTube is outright saying, yeah, we're going to promote top news channels rather than alternative media. Continuing to reward trusted creators and enforce our monetization policies. Finally, it's critical that our monetization systems reward trusted creators who add value to YouTube. We have long-standing advertiser-friendly guidelines that prohibit ads from running on videos that include hateful content, and we enforce these rigorously. And of course, as we've seen, like, you have like Dave Rubin's channel, who pretty much every video he puts out is demonetized. And I think just recently, speaking of Sargon earlier, pretty much his entire channel was demonetized not too long ago. So again, like, when they say these videos include hateful content, it's really, if it's anything outside the most basic of views, like if it's outside the views of again, Mitt Romney and Nancy Pelosi, then like, oh, it's extremist and hateful. And in order to protect our ecosystem of creators, advertisers, and viewers, we tightened our advertising criteria in 2017. In the case of hate speech, we are strengthening enforcement of our existing YouTube partner program policies. Channels that repeatedly brush up against our hate speech policies will be suspended from the YouTube Partner Program, meaning they can't run ads on their channel or use other monetization features like Super Chat. So basically, you're going to see a lot of more Patreon and Subscribestar alternatives popping up. Because, yeah, they're basically just cracking down even further is what they're saying. They're even going after the borderline stuff. So if it wasn't strict enough, now it's going to be even more strict. The openness of YouTube's platform has helped creativity and access to information thrive. It's our responsibility to protect that and prevent our platform from being used to incite hatred, harassment, discrimination, and violence. We are committed to taking the steps needed to live up to this responsibility today, tomorrow, and in the years to come. Now, honestly, like, I'll admit, I understand what I'm saying here. I kind of see their point in a little bit, in that if you are running a company, you're running a big social media platform, like, it might be a bit bothersome that as you're putting out allowing everyone to use this platform, you're going to see people complaining about the Jews, and you're going to see people pushing crazy conspiracy theories, and you're going to see people I'm just saying incredibly wrong things and being genuinely awful on the internet. I get it. Like, you're someone that your moral conscience is probably like, okay, like, I don't like that, I should probably do something about that. But your moral conscience also has to understand your limits and say, okay, I'm not going to go down that road. And you can go down that road just enough to say things like, okay, I'm not fine with, like, if I had my own platform, I wouldn't be fine with child pornography on that platform. I would do everything I could to remove it. I wouldn't be fine with, like, any kind of, like, pedophilia grooming videos, like, stuff like that is genuinely awful in the sense that it violates people's rights. It's not just unpopular, or it's not just offensive, it is legitimately, like, evil. Okay, we can take down that stuff, like the stuff that, like, preys on children, those kind of things. We can take down the people that are directly calling for violence, that are like, yeah, kill all these people, like, go out and actually do. Is this video going to be taken off YouTube because YouTube's algorithm is going to pick up me saying those words? I don't know. But yeah, the people saying that, like, sure, I might, if I was running a platform like this, sure, I would tackle those videos. And I don't think that'd be that difficult, because that's not that many videos. I would take down, specifically, yeah, calls for violence, or people, like, doing awful things like that, or abusing children, like, those kind of things. Or maybe even videos that specifically show violence. And again, YouTube doesn't allow nudity. That's another thing. Okay, you want people to use your platform, we can block nudity. Okay. That's about it. That's about it, to be honest. I can't think of just going after and saying, okay, I'm going to get rid of the hate speech stuff, and who am I going to consult? Again, when you consult people, like, when you consult experts, who are those experts? Like, there's no easy way to find out who these experts are when it comes to, like, political opinion, because the problem is it's whatever opinion is the establishment, and we know, again, like, imagine consulting experts in different countries, especially radically different countries. Imagine going to Saudi Arabia and talking to their experts on extremism. You're going to get something very different. So talking to our experts, it's really murky when it comes to figuring out who is telling the truth and who is false. If you're someone that's not, like, politically biased or anything, if you're someone that's trying to take a neutral approach to politics, it's just not going to work. It's just, I don't have faith in this program. It cannot work. What I do find interesting is they say no comments, so I kind of have to wonder if just their comment system is broken here, or if nobody posted anything, or if, like, just everyone's been reading New York Times and not actually clicking on the original source. But yeah, remember, original source. You want to go to what the YouTube official blog says rather than something like the New York Times that, hey, it might give you a rundown, but just get in the habit of, if you read an article and the first thing it does is say, according to this, click on what that link says, the according to this link, and find the original source. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments section. Like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more. Again, criticisms of what I said, of YouTube's official blog. If there's anything I missed, I want to hear your thoughts, and I will hopefully reply to those. I read all the comments. Sometimes I forget to reply, and then I'll be like, oh, I should reply to that, and then I forget all about it. But yeah, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.